I'll just go in order as the people signed in, those wishing to speak. If you want to, when I call your name, just stand up, introduce yourself, and you've got 3 minutes. So the first is Dan Sanders.
That's me front and center. My name is Dan Sanders. That's okay.
If anyone wants a microwave, you just microwave.
Can we have people use it because there's some inclusive.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These words were put into our Declaration of Independence to promise these fundamental rights to all American citizens. We fought an entire war that separates ourselves from the religious and the political dogma of tyrants thousands of miles away, and we ensure that all Americans have the ability to think and live as they wish. Today we fight a similar fight, albeit from a much closer tyrant. We are presented with an argument that an entire demographic of people is inferior while one remains superior. The recent ask of the board to remove articles displaying surrounding love, acceptance, and inclusion is simply baffling to me. Libraries have dated back 5,000 years, starting in Southeast Asia, with the belief that knowledge was such a powerful force that it must be provided to those searching for wisdom and connection. Today's libraries operate with the same guiding principles. An educated public is a powerful public. The spread of knowledge led us to magnificent treasures like the Library of Alexandria. Following Alexander the Great's death in 323 BC, control of Egypt fell to his former general, Ptolemy I, who sought to establish a center of learning in the city of Alexandria. The result was the Library of Alexandria, which eventually became the intellectual jewel of the ancient world. People traveled from miles around just sharing this knowledge. People of different races, different backgrounds, different beliefs, all came together to put their collective knowledge in a central place. I'm inspired to see all of the people that are here and all of the programs that the Waupun Library has to offer. I love that we are a warming center in the winter. I'm excited to see the Waupun Library as a meeting place for homeschool groups. I'm encouraged by the library's continued dedication to those with disabilities by providing an accessible place to gain knowledge. I'm elated that our library provides books for those who might have vision difficulties. I treasure that our library allows groups of all different kinds to gather and discuss their ideas. I love that our library develops programs for those with Alzheimer's that allows them to continue to challenge their brains. And I treasure our summer reading program. It's a fantastic outlet for our children to explore the magic of a library. But today we're faced with an attack on the fundamental belief that the sharing of knowledge only advances mankind. The attack on the LGBTQ literature places an existential threat to the spread of ideas and clashes with the concept that knowledge and ideas should be shared to all. I ask you as a public library to deny this censorship. I fear that this proposed censorship sets a dangerous precedent that somebody does not belong in a public library. And I challenge you to continue to provide a welcoming environment for all individuals.
Thank you.
My name is Steve Chene. I live here in Waupun. I am a former school board president, and I come to you rising in support of blocking censorship in every form possible. We are nationally wise. We are in a national crisis right now. We basically have a coup underway. We have a president today who called himself a king. We cannot allow our democracy to fail. That problem comes from a much lower level. It comes from here. And I want to share with you a little bit on what happened with me as a warning for you on the road that we're going down. We're leading towards book banning. We know when that happened. Book burning. We know when that happened. Racism, white supremacy, all of this ties in. In my case, I was part of a family up in Alto for 15 years. And that church asked me to come onto the school board. They first came to my wife. Family, no. So I went to the board. And I enjoyed my time on the board for the 3 years that I was there. I rose to the level of board president by the time I went off. I also was on the board of control for CISA 6. I was their vice chair of CISA 6. So I was settling in for what I hoped would be a very long, deep run supporting education in this town. In hindsight, it became very clear. The reason that I was approached to get on the board was we had a board member who was gay. And there's a foundational hatred of gay because it's a sin. There's a foundational fear because if you allow for the sin, as we were once told from the pulpit, your faith will fail. I must stand against that, fanatically, strongly. At the end of my first term, and only term, I was very quietly removed from the school board. There was a texting process that was going on amongst the church members, and it became a large enough majority in the precincts to knock me off of the board, an election that should not even have been close. And I was removed. I was removed because of the hate. And when I saw the text after the election, I never had a chance to defend myself. So I want to make this clear. I'm not making this about me. I'm saying this as a clear warning to you folks. The hatred is deep, it is passionate. Look out, it's coming. Thank you.
Dylan Stein?
You know, I have some prepared comments. I'm sorry, Dylan Stein. I happen to be the school board member that Steve was talking about replacing. Local gay, 50 years. I sat today and I have comments, and you know, I have copies if anybody wants them afterwards. But they feel somewhat inadequate to the moment. So I'm just gonna wing it. I love this library. I don't get here nearly as often as I should probably, because I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where when I want a book, I go to buy it. When I need a video or a DVD or something, I go and buy it. And I recognize that as a place of privilege, and that does not negate the valuable functionality of the library here. Every community needs what we have. And so many communities have either no library system or subpar library systems. And the fact that ours was the second one in the state is a substantial point of pride within our community. This building gives people an opportunity to come, to unwind, to find part of themselves, to be part of the community, and to ensure that their voice is heard as it deserves to be heard. When we were on the school board, we started every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay? Where does that stand? Everybody knows the pledge, right? With liberty and justice for all. The liberty to go about our lives in the fashion that makes us happiest and brings us faith and love and hope. The justice to have our voices present in the public sphere. And I know this is hard for some people to understand, but all means all. Not just white people, not just straight people, not just Christians, not just men. All means all. And libraries have been a beacon for people who feel marginalized, for people who feel like their presence doesn't matter. The vital role that institutions like this play, and the pride of place that people have who run these institutions and who create these policies to include everyone, is vital to the continuing support of our nation. Education, as has been said, is the silver bullet. And you can get that here. And sorry, but I'm a taxpayer. I have the right to have my interests defined and represented here as well, just as everybody else in this room does. So, with that, I guess I'll leave it on. Thank you so much for your time.
Christina Neumann.
Good afternoon, my name is Christina Neumann. My first reaction to this letter of banning books was anger. It was a visceral reaction to someone who was being a bully to an already marginalized set of people. If all people are made in God's image, why does he have an issue with the gays? Reading books about homosexual relationships where two people love each other will not make a child gay. Instead, it shows them that love comes in all sorts of variations. Children need to know that loving someone who is the same sex as them is not a bad thing. If you take those books away, it shows the kids these relationships. They think they're not worthy, that they are less than. I don't know about you, but to have one child think that they are not worthy of love because of who they like or love is unthinkable to me. First, it is books about gays and children, gay children and adults. Next will be books written about bi and about black people, Native American people, or people of Asian descent. It will even come down to banning books that have Piglet and Winnie the Pooh in them because they're two men or two boys that are friends. We need to move forward and not backward. Banning books is not the job of one person. If I don't want my child to read a book, I won't let them. I want my child to be a well-rounded adult when they grow up and not a closed-minded one. I don't need or want a person who hides behind their God to tell me what books my child can or cannot read. I am the parent and have the final say. The library should not be banning any book, especially for religious purposes. It should be a safe haven for people who want an escape from their everyday lives or for someone who is finding out who they are. I implore you to stand up to the bullies and not to succumb to their tactics. Love is love is love. Please don't deny that.
Spindler.
I'm Sister Peg Spindler, a sister of St. Agnes. I come to speak on my own behalf to support keeping books about the LGBTQIA community on the shelves of this library. In Matthew 22:37-39, Jesus says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and your soul and all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." And in Luke 10:25, someone asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" So Jesus tells the story of the Good Samaritan, a member of the despised and marginalized people Jewish folks held in contempt in those days, as a way of teaching that everyone is our neighbor, even those we don't understand. Jesus also told us in the Great Judgment story of Matthew 25:35, "I was a stranger, and you welcomed me." Stranger, one we don't understand, one whose culture or behaviors are different than mine, one who can pull us out of our comfort zone, but one nonetheless who is to be loved if Jesus' command is to be believed. And just in case we forget this command to love everyone with no exceptions, because Jesus never said, love your neighbor except for so-and-so, or except for that group. Jesus also said quite strongly in Matthew 7:1, "Judge not, that you may not be judged. For the measure you measure with will be used to measure you." I am a voracious reader. I want to be able to access and read books representative of the world I live in, so I can understand who my neighbors are. I want to understand their cultures and behaviors, their ways and wisdom, so that can inform my own growth as a human being, and I can better love them. I am a woman. I want to read books about the ways of women, all women. I am a writer and a poet, so I'd like to lay my hands on books of poetry and beautiful prose from all nations and ethnicities without limit. I'm also a member of the LGBTQ community myself, and so I'd like to have access to books that represent our community and its diversity, just as there should be books about people of color, indigenous people, and the whole history of our nation. And because children only grow into a healthy understanding of the world they will sometimes lead, I stand in support of keeping these books on your shelves. Thank you.
Elizabeth Cook.
Betsy Cook here. So I read the statement written by Pastor Gappa. And I respect the conviction that Pastor Gappa holds and that people of that theological persuasion hold. I was raised in that particular subculture, extremely conservative religiously. And as a queer person, it was very difficult. We had no education about anything relating to, you know, identities other than straight, other than, you know, that's a sin. I didn't even know asexuality was an option. I had to figure out I was asexual in my 20s. And I mean, talk about the gender stuff. We were raised, you know, actually, it is to the point where they believe that women submit to men, men are the head, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I won't go into that. But I take exception with the idea that, you know, quote unquote in the statement, it's progressive until it kills. Not having access to education kills. I know at least one person who has killed themselves over this. I know multiple people who have attempted. I have also attempted to take my own life. It's kind of a problem. So I take exception with that. And I would like to point out that there are ties between Pastor Gappa and a hate group in Milwaukee called Missionaries to the Preborn. I used to run with that hate group because I was raised, I'm out of it now, but I won't go into like all the connections because I only got like a minute left, but I have the receipts if anyone, you know, wants to talk later. But yeah, basically to sum up, like I respect that conviction. I used to hold that conviction, but it's wrong. It hurts people, and we shouldn't do it. That's all.
MaryBeth Cole.
I'm just going to do it real quick. This is a public library, which means it's for everyone, all races, all creeds, all religion. If you don't want to read that book, don't pick that book up. But we're not here to ban books, we're not here to burn books.
Reverend Jerry Molitor.
Hello, I'm Father Jerry from the Episcopal Church from Holy Trinity down the block. First of all, I'll start off with some good news, something light and with some levity. Do you know of a guy by the name of Chris Nord? Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. He had a terrible accident. He is in rehab, living in Omaha, Nebraska right now at rehab, and he will be there for quite some time. But he asked me to relate to you, all y'all, how much he appreciated you. Going out of your way to get the eclectic books and topics that he was after. You never let him down. And you always treated him with joy and with dignity. And he just wanted to pass along, thank you. The other topic is, I'm an Episcopal priest. I think you took a lot of thunder out of what I was going to say. So Rabbi Hillel, somebody came up and asked Rabbi Hillel to summarize all of Scripture while standing on one leg. And he says to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself, and all the rest is commentary. What we're facing today is the love your neighbor as yourself. We in our Episcopal Church, I'm always tempted to say that our motto should be, we are the church that doesn't care. We don't care where you came from. We don't care the color of your skin or your eyes. We don't care about your sexual orientation. We don't care what baggage that you're carrying because you are a child of God. And I have to commend you, the people of this library so far, have allowed all those same things to happen. And it's coming from love. It's coming from giving the benefits to everyone, because everyone is worthy of dignity and respect. So I simply ask you to continue the tradition, to love everyone, regardless.
Sandra Champion.
Good evening. First, I want to say that I'm really nervous because I really prefer the written word than standing in front of a big group of people. But I feel really strongly about this. So I'm just going to read. I'm a really good reader, so I'm going to read what I wrote. My name is Sandra Champion. My address is 802 Pat T. Drive, Waupun, Wisconsin. I have lived in Waupun for over 35 years. I'm a former employee of the Waupun Public Library, and I think the Waupun Public Library is the crown jewel of Waupun. Let me say that again, the Waupun Public Library. I rise today to express my opinion on the issue of banning all LGBTQ books from the Waupun Public Library. We must not succumb to the forces in our community who want to control public thought through the banning of books. None other than Keith Richards, who is still a Rolling Stone after all these years, and the personification of not judging a book by its cover, had this to say about the issue we are facing, and I quote, "When you are growing up, there are two institutional places that affect you most powerfully, the church, which belongs to God, and the public library, which belongs to you. I believe that we must stand firm on the fact that the public library belongs to all of us. No one is forcing anyone to check out books that they find objectionable. You who propose this action have no right to tell us all what to read. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today."
Champion.
Libraries are not the arbitrators of morality. They are a collection of knowledge and art. Everyone has their own individual sense of right and wrong. For some nebulous collective to enforce their own private beliefs upon everybody else spits in the face of the individuality our country has been founded on. Imagine if the president of our country was just superstitious of the color green. Then a fringe group of their political following decided to petition every library and ban every book with green on the cover, and then they succeeded. Crazy, right? Books shouldn't be banned over such an arbitrary reason. I think we can all agree on that. But that is the logical endpoint of this path this ban is trying to take us upon. Accepting this ban sets a very dangerous precedent that endangers the well-being of our community. Now, I have a hunch that a lot of this motivation is deeply rooted in some people's religious beliefs. So let me address that crowd. I hope this is a very real and haunting example for you. You do realize that if this ban goes through, a group of atheists or Satanists could use your exact same logic to ban the Bible or any text that mentions Christianity? If that possibility does not sit well with you, this ban should not sit well with you. To borrow an old aphorism, if you give an inch, they'll take a mile. If this mass ban goes through, you are giving an inch and you have absolutely no control over who takes that mile. Thank you.
Julia Nickel.
Go. Hi, my name is Julie Nickel, and let's acknowledge the purpose of a library. It is a place where knowledge, ideas, and stories from all perspectives are shared, valued, and respected. A library provides the opportunity to explore the complexities of the human experience, to find reflection and connection, and to discover viewpoints we may not have encountered before. It is a place where people of all ages can learn about the world around them, a space where freedom of expression thrives. The books and exhibits in question provide an invaluable opportunity for education, empathy, and understanding. For young readers, they represent a chance to see themselves in stories and to know they are not alone and to feel validated in their identities. For those who may be unfamiliar with the LGBTQ plus experiences, these materials offer a window into lives that are often misunderstood or ignored. It allows us to build bridges, not walls, to create a society where respect for others is a foundation for our future. By removing these books and exhibits, we risk silencing important voices and erasing narratives that have the power to foster inclusivity, and compassion. History has shown us time and time again that marginalizing certain communities only perpetuates division and misunderstanding. Our library should be a place that stands against that by providing all voices a platform. Let's also consider the diversity of the community we serve. Our library is a reflection of the world around us, a microcosm of the diversity in our schools, workplaces, and neighborhoods. When we offer books and exhibits that reflect a variety of experiences and identities, we allow every person who walks through these doors to feel acknowledged. For those that may feel isolated or unsupported in their lives, the library can be a sanctuary, a place where they find solace in the stories of others. The issue at hand just isn't about LGBTQ content, it's about the principle of intellectual freedom. We must ask ourselves, do we believe in the right for individuals to choose what we read and learn? Should we allow anyone to restrict access to ideas that may challenge or expand our worldview? I urge you to remember that libraries are meant to be safe places for the exchange of ideas, not battlegrounds for political ideologies. In closing, I ask that you think about the long-term impact of your decision by keeping the LGBTQ books and exhibits in our library. We are supporting a community where all people, regardless of their identity, can be seen, heard, and understood. We are fostering an environment where diversity is celebrated and intellectual freedom is cherished. And lastly, for those in the LGBTQ community, I see you, I hear you, I admire you for who you are, and I'm proud of you for being the difference and the change in our community. Thank you, and God bless.
Reverend Jim Coakley.
Hi, I'm the Reverend Jim Coakley, and I'm from the Open Circle Fellowship in Fond du Lac, and I'm gay. I grew up in a small town in Illinois, a rural town that was very much about the size of a pond, even had a prison nearby, so a lot of similar circumstances. And my family was devoutly Christian, and I was raised especially by my mother and her aunt, who were very devout, and because my father worked all the time to support us. By the time I was 9, I knew I was attracted to the same sex, but I had no idea how to process it. But I was fortunate because I had a family that really loved me no matter what, and they just let me kind of figure it out. And that helped me avoid a lot of misinformation that I might have been attracted to, or a lot of confusion and not thinking well of myself because of all the bullying I went through at the time. Well, now in the 21st century, it's a lot different. Teens have all kinds of access to information on the internet. There's all kinds of predators out there, and there's all kinds of bullying going on. And we have an epidemic of suicides right now. And if you do a little bit of research, there's a high percentage of them that are LGBTQ plus something out there. So I am coming at this, you've had a lot of great speakers, by the way. And I'm just coming at this with sort of like, let's save some lives, because if they can find books about healthy relationships and how to be proud of yourself and love yourself, I think you'd save a lot of lives and not let them get the information elsewhere. Thank you.
Ashlie Hoeft.
I've raised 3 daughters, ages 24, 20, and 14. All 3 girls grew up in the same house. They read the same books and had the same experiences. Of the 3, only one of them is gay. Books and experiences don't make people gay. God creates them that way. In the letter Mr. Gappa wrote, he says it is his job to protect young people, to love others as he loves himself, and to protect Waupun from harm. He says love should be the motive for citizenship. The Waupun Public Library meets all of the same criteria Mr. Gappa admires in himself. The library is inherently a safe place for not only young people but all community members. Our library is a warming center when temperatures are frigid. Everyone who walks through the doors is accepted for who they are and helped with what they need. The books in our library give all community members the opportunity to reflect on their identity and see themselves in the characters of the books. People attempting to ban books is not new. The Library Bill of Rights was approved in 1969, the same year the Freedom to Read statement was incorporated by the ALA, and Freedom to View was endorsed by the ALA in 1990. These documents were created to challenge censorship, to keep singular viewpoints of one librarian, publisher, government, or church from taking away the rights of others to have the opportunity to read a broad range of material. The Freedom to View statement literally says to contest vigorously by all lawful means every encroachment upon the public's freedom to view. Banning books is an attempt to silence voices, voices that have fought to be heard, voices whose stories light the way for the next generation, voices that belong in libraries. We cannot demonize the gay community. Books involving gay characters are no different than those with straight characters. Some of the biggest themes in LGBTQ+ literature are exactly the same as the themes found in other literature. Empathy, acceptance, joy, resilience, empowerment, self-discovery, and love. Mr. Gappa's letter said, "Sin is progressive until it kills." I don't know one gay person who has died from being gay, but I know people who have taken their own lives because they felt they couldn't live as their authentic selves because they were made to feel less than by others. How awesome would it be if Mr. Gappa used his faith to embrace and love these community members, lifting them up and accepting them for who they are like our public library does. Mr. Gappa's letter told you all to not be dismayed by feelings of smallness or inadequacy. When I look at this group, that is not what I see in any of you. I see a group of people looking to uphold the policies that make all public libraries great. We have to continue to keep our libraries a safe place for every member of our community, a place where every person can see a reflection of who they are in the books that occupy the shelves.
Mulder.
Any library, but especially this library, has always been a special place for me. It's a place of adventure and surprises, but also a place of learning and calm. When I was struggling with postpartum anxiety, I would come to this library with my newborn and sit for hours because it made me feel safe and welcome. I didn't need to pay to be here, I wasn't limited to a certain amount of time or asked to move on, and it never mattered whether I was reading a romance novel, a sci-fi fantasy adventure, or a historical document about ancient Egypt. I've come here to learn a new language, find resources to finish my college degree, and to play with my child. I truly believe that a library is the heart of the community in which it resides and should be available for all peoples. We're here today because it's been proposed to remove certain subjects from the resources available here under a concern of corrupting our youth, and I have to say that in all of the true crime documentaries I've watched and all the news I've heard over my lifetime, never have I heard of a library being fingered as the igniting factor or a culpable source. I tried marijuana when I was younger and I did not become a drug addict. I've seen two women kissing and I've not become a lesbian. I've enjoyed a drag brunch or two and have not questioned my own gender identity. I'm a child of divorce and I've been married for 16 years. I've read quite literally hundreds of fantasy books and have not, unfortunately, become either a magician or a mermaid. A casual relationship between LGBTQ literature and children belonging to that community is not a logical argument for the literature causing that alignment. People will read what interests them and what applies to them, not the other way around. I did not learn how to be straight from a book, and others will not learn how to be gay from a book. Every individual and every family has the right to read or not read any and all books available to them, but they should be available to them. Throughout history, the ones who have banned the books, who have censored the knowledge, and who have repressed the rights of others have never been the good guys. I urge this board to consider which side of history they want to be on.
Hi, my name is Maria Richards. My pronouns are she, her, hers. My child's pronouns are they, them, theirs. She helped me write this. Well, I say she because she flings, she goes back and forth. Anyway, I love and respect the Waupun Public Library and all it has to offer. I love and respect how the library is a public safe space for any who enter and use the library. It represents the community of Waupun. I love and respect how this material is there to represent anyone from anywhere at any time. I love the opportunities to study anything in the world, to grow as an individual, as well as for the community. If the library is to begin to limit information, that is to become selective of who, what, when, where, why, and the hows of material, it could lead the community down a slippery path. My kid then added the word fascism. At that point, you can tell what age they're at now. At that point, if that were to happen, I would have difficulty respecting and loving the Waupun Public Library, because you represent the community of Waupun. Community is a group of diverse people living in the same place with joint responsibility for the space's stewardship and taking care of each other. The library is the public resource to better understand the growing diversity of this community. Anyone who enters this public space should be able to find a book or material that represents themselves or looks and acts like themselves. And with that in place, the community can learn more about their neighbors and thus take care of each other. Regarding the display in question, my child recalled looking at it for me. They remember seeing many titles of both fiction and nonfiction. They observed book choices, such as explaining who was the main character in the book, as well as what consequential moments that happened in history. They recalled the display promoting books, just books. So I will close with a thought that you've already heard already. The good guys never ever banned the books. And a quote from Taoism: regard your neighbor's gain as your own gain, and your neighbor's loss as your own loss. Thank you.
Jacob Nault.
My name is the Reverend Jacob Nault, and I serve as the pastor of Union Congregational Church across from the hospital. This last Sunday, I preached a great deal on Luke's account of the Beatitudes, where Jesus says, "Blessed are you when people hate you, when they exclude you and insult you, and reject your name as evil because of the Son of Man." I believe that removing LGBTQ+ literature in this community would cause irreparable harm and erase the histories of LGBTQ people and their allies, which I believe this library has a responsibility to uphold as a resource for the public good. This library is and has always been a community resource which is available freely to all people, without being encumbered by one particular ideology, especially any kind of religious ideology. Removing such literature would be a slippery slope, because one man's interpretation of the Bible could call into question the inclusion of literature by or about any marginalized group in our society. Myself and many of my church members are in strong and unequivocal opposition to such a ban. And I have informed my congregation that I intend to make our church a safe place for LGBTQ+ folks and any marginalized group to be who they are without fear of judgment from me or anyone else. My office door is always open to community members who would like to talk to me more about these issues and what it means to be a person of faith who works for advancing the rights of marginalized people instead of silencing their identities. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm here because I'm also concerned about the souls of our youth. However, I'm not concerned with literature that contains same-sex relationships, as this is only a passively mentioned bit in the New Testament. I'm concerned with issues that are directly condemned more than 10 or more instances. Starting with vengeance, 11 instances. A conservative estimate for literature involving vengeance in an average library is around 5,000 books. I would like those destroyed. I would also like films involving this to be destroyed as well, so that's RoboCop, all John Wicks, any movie starring Liam Neeson. Secondly, Covet, so greed in general. It's another 5,000 books we gotta get out of here, so a lot of that's David Ramsey. Lust, all the romance novels, they gotta go, hit the bricks. Worship of false gods, so that's 15 times that's mentioned. So any book that depicts an entity as a god that isn't the one I personally believe in, that needs to get out of here. The promotion of slavery, that's been mentioned. Actually, they're fine with that one. But honestly, the knee-jerk reaction of that is a different time, right? It was a different time, just like now is a different time than that was. We've learned a lot about society, people, and how things work, and I think we should keep that in consideration. And it's not a dig at Christianity at all. It's just we should try to treat ourselves, the way we treat others, and try to be good folks.
Colin Eckerstorfer.
Hi, my name is Colin Eckerstorfer. I have been a citizen of Waupun for all 36 years of my life. I'm also a social worker. I've worked in the child welfare field for approximately a decade. I'm here today to express my support of our public library and all of its staff. While most people think that libraries are simply a place to check out books, they are so much more. The library is a refuge. No one stands at the door to take your money. The library is free, as in freedom. It doesn't matter what your religion, race, or political persuasion is, everyone is welcome at the library. Oftentimes, children seek sanctuary at the library. Often mistaken for being bookish loners, very often kids are escaping a turbulent home life. A place where there are no drunken arguments, no frying pans flying across the room, and where the code of quiet, gently enforced by librarians, often spells comfort and safety. It is also a place where help with homework is readily available, and where books to escape from a troubled home are plentiful. I could stand up here and cite countless peer-reviewed articles that show that banning books can have a detrimental impact on a young person's mental health, but I will share just one with you all. LGBTQ youth who wanted mental health care in the past year, sorry, I got the wrong page there. A study by the Trevor Project found that 45% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. It's nearly half. And 60% of LGBTQ youth who wanted mental health care in the past year were unable to access it. Additional statistics found that LGBTQ youth who found their schools to be affirming reported lower rates of attempting suicide, and queer and trans youth who live in a community more accepting of LGBTQ people reported significantly lower rates of attempting suicide than those who do not. While these two statistics may seem like no-brainers, it proves that inclusivity makes a large difference in ensuring that LGBTQ youth feel safer and more comfortable in their identity. The study further shows that these youth living in states and cities with more protective climates are at a lower risk of suicidal thoughts, plans, and attempts, with sexual orientation disparities and suicidal thoughts nearly eliminated in these safe environments. Therefore, we can conclude that when LGBTQ books are removed from libraries, it harms LGBTQ youth's mental health and well-being. Banning books about the lived experiences and histories of marginalized groups of people only serve to increase feelings of exclusion and invisibility, and intensify these youth's risk of mental health issues. That letter that was sent by the pastor states that these books will encourage sin and fuel the sin. There is no evidence to support this idea. In fact, studies show quite the opposite. By reading diverse books, critical thinking skills are enhanced, as are levels of empathy.
That's 3 minutes. Sorry to interrupt.
All right. I will done with saying this is not just a friendly debate. The point I want to get across is that this is quite literally about saving the lives of children.
Okay, Forsell Gappa.
I too will read as quickly as I can, and I come out to 2 minutes and 50 seconds by my count up to this point. So
I haven't started yet. So.
All right. Just tell me when. Well, in the meantime, I do support much of what's said about the value of the library. All right. I was not intending to show up today. I figured I'd let you board members talk things over while I would wait for your response. Until last night when I heard from a couple of friends that you might come under pressure from people who want you to keep the library's policies and practices intact, which promote homosexuality to youth. I saw an online scanned version of my 3-minute manuscript from last month where I shared 2 quick suggestions at the end. The first showed up on the scanned version, but not the second. The first suggestion went like this: we live in a society and age where we've been told that some things are too big and immovable to change, and so we tend to say the decision is out of my hands, there is nothing I can do about it. Please don't be dissuaded by feelings of smallness or inadequacy. 9 or 10 people can decide in 5 minutes to change a policy. But there was a second suggestion that didn't appear in the online version that I saw. It was my 4 final sentences at the end, and I will read them. And second, I said, we are all in the spiritual presence of Jesus Christ always. He is here. He is the most important one everywhere. And so I appeal to you in His presence, please modify the library's policies and practices. And so today I just want to say nothing has changed. We are all present before Jesus Christ right now, and when we each go our own way back to our homes and jobs and activities and thoughts and words and behaviors, Jesus is still ever present and everywhere present. But He is not the only invisible one present. For as Paul tells the church, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. There are these spiritual ones who hold a stake in all of our day-to-day decisions as God's image bearers. So it's not simply you and me, the humans in the room. There are others as well invested in what happens. So I encourage you board members to take the necessary time to do the hard work. These policies must be worked at and modified. What you currently promote as library services and the criteria by which you select materials to put on the shelves, both of these need to be re-evaluated and redone. Do not give in to the influence of what some might call the spirit of the age. The powers and principalities that the church is called to wrestle with in our age, they are not benevolent, but malevolent. They are not for people, but against people, all people, church and unchurched. Thank you.
Benjamin Pickett.
Like any good debate like this, it's important to have middle-aged straight white guys express their opinions. When I initially saw the letter as a Christian, got pretty mad because I've done a fair amount of study, both being raised in a parochial school through Christianity, and then into college where I studied with, had priests and rabbis teaching classes on religion. And you learn a lot about things not being in context, or changes that were made as a social change, as opposed to something that is divine from the book. And in this case, a lot of the arguments he faces trigger out of Leviticus. About a few lines in there that in the early 1900s, a few English speakers decided to purposely mistranslate. So if you go back to the Greek translations that are still in a lot of the Greek Orthodox and the German translations, when they say it's a sin for a man to lay with a man, and there's a couple different references in there, it was actually a little boy. When a man, it's a sin for a man to lay with a little boy. And then there's another Greek word that is explicitly being a pedophile is a punishable sin. Can't get to heaven. So really, in Jesus's definition of Christianity, as it comes through in the original text, or the closest we've got, there's no mention of homosexuality of any sort being a sin. And in context, he was around during the Roman Empire. And if you study the Roman Empire, there were lots of examples available to him to condemn them as sins. And it wasn't. He didn't cast people out. He didn't condemn them as sins. So to make anyone feel or use that as an argument for removing any content that might make someone feel normal, or more importantly, someone like me who is generally considered normal by some, be able to get that empathy and that different perspective that will maybe help a kid who maybe has a mom and a dad see it as more normal for a kid that maybe has, you know, a mom and a mom, or dad, or some other, or feels differently themselves. So really having these resources available is important to keep that compassion. And I think it's very clear as you see the number of ministers and pastors who are here speaking on this side for keeping this content and letting people know that they're loved and express that. Clearly shows that Christians and the guy upstairs are very much for these people and expressing themselves and being here. And that little guy doesn't speak for Christianity. It's people like him who wear a veil of Christianity to spread hate and violence to control people and hold other people down. So I implore you to, of course, follow the Christian ethic of this and keep the contact.
Jess Champion.
Yes, I'm another middle-aged white guy. And I've been coming to this library since I've been knee-high to a grasshopper. And that was sometime last century. And this library means a lot to me. I've gone through this library. They helped us out with our Boy Scout, and I was involved with Boy Scouts for many, many years. And thanks to our library director, he's very involved as well. And so this really means a lot to me. And I am definitely against this book banning. So, like I said, my name is Jeff Champion, and I've been here in Waupun for quite a while. And by being part of a free country, public libraries need to abide by our Constitution, by separation of church and state, by making available all library resources that can be used to enlighten and let individuals make their own decisions. Whether one or one's caretakers, including parents, choose to refer to available library materials is their choice and prerogative and should be personal. The beliefs of those living in a secular nation should not be shoved down other people's throats by banning books. Just by having a variety of written materials does not translate to indoctrination. However, the restriction of materials by banning may be seen as a form of a subliminal indoctrination of beliefs. Banning is a slippery slope and the beginning of loss of a free, democratic, secular society. Thank you.
Again, my name is Kristi Thurk. I thank everyone here for showing up, and I thank our board for all of the work that they consistently do on our behalf, on our youth's behalf as well. When I was a sophomore in high school, I had to write a research report. That research report required a whole lot of reading, couldn't just be magazines, and AOL wasn't fast enough. So we had to read books. I decided I wanted to write my research report about cannibalism. I was fascinated. How in the world could someone come up with that idea and think that was a cool way to go? So I wrote a lot of books about cannibalism. I haven't eaten anybody yet. And frankly, this request is just as ridiculous. If your fear is truly for the community, perhaps you should be braver. If your fear is truly for our youth, perhaps you should inspire them. I think banning these books can cause death. Because when your child is desperate to find an example of someone like them, a book is where they can find it. Or they could go online, where all the predators are, right? I don't want my kid in a chat room. And I can tell you, my daughter was gay. I say was, because we lost her to cancer. I don't think that was Jesus punishing her, by the way. My son My son read a lot of books about being gay because he wanted to understand his sister's point of view. He picked up her books from her room, the ones she was reading, right? They were a little too mature for him. We had to cut off a couple, right? But that was my choice as a parent. He read books to understand his sister's point of view. I can tell you he's not attracted to other little boys because reading about it doesn't make you gay. Just like reading about cannibalism did not make me take a bite out of someone's leg. Thank you.
Heather VanBuren.
All right, I might be the only employee here stupid enough to speak. My name is Heather VanBuren, and I'm an employee at the Waupun Public Library, as well as a patron since childhood. I've always loved to read, but as an adult, I realized what draws me to the libraries isn't my love of books. It's my love of serving others, of fostering a purpose bigger than any one person or building can be. Libraries stand for free expression and against censorship. They are safe havens to protect ideas, as well as challenge them. Library workers have a professional and ethical responsibility to be fair and just in defending the library user's right to read, view, or listen to content protected by the First Amendment. Library workers must not permit their personal biases, opinions, or preferences to unduly influence collection development decisions. We serve by exposing our communities to a wide variety of information and resources through library displays, programming, and these materials. We act as stewards for everyone, regardless of age or gender, race or religion, life experience or viewpoints. We do not judge. We welcome everyone. To echo those who have spoken before me with far much more eloquency than I can offer, policies cannot be based on personal beliefs. Our collection development policy is rooted in the Library Bill of Rights and the Freedom to Read statement, and any additional policies should be created with these same values. As shared in an ALA interpretation of the Library Bill of Rights, library displays increase awareness of programs, resources, and services. They introduce users and potential users to library resources and the library's role as a facilitator of information access. As stated in an ALA diverse collection interpretation of the Library Bill of Rights, access to diverse titles applies equally to deselecting or removing materials from display. Refusing to select resources due to potential controversy is considered censorship, as is withdrawing resources for that reason. The American Library Association's Office for Intellectual Freedom provides support and services to help create and edit policies, and they are consulted and asked that they continue to be consulted while reviewing or creating any additional policies. I strongly believe that any displays that have been called into question would fit well within the parameters that they would suggest and support. I also just really want to thank everybody who cared enough to be here tonight to support your library. You are the reason that libraries exist. Thank you for being you.
Jaedon Buchholz.
My name is Jaedon Buchholz. I've lived in Waupun my entire life. I've worked at the library here previously. I very much believe in libraries. Obviously, everyone that knows me knows that I love library, I love history, I love the museum. But there is one thing that I was actually very concerned about when I heard about this controversy, was the promotional displays for some of this material. So I have a book in front of me. It's called Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe. I don't know how to pronounce that, if I pronounced that correctly. And it is, in my opinion, it has some very explicit material in it, very explicit content, which I do not believe is fit for public promotional displays. And having it on the shelf is one thing, but having it on a public display in a very visible location, say in front of the circ desk, I would not want to see that be the case. So I just want to make that aware too. I don't think that in a lot of these books it really hits home how explicit some of this content can be if you do not see it. Now this is a graphic novel, so of course it is a drawn format, so it is more explicit than just reading a regular book. But I would challenge you to look at this book. This is a book in our collection. I would challenge you to look at this book and consider whether this should be something that we should have on public display. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Winston Grimes.
Sorry, everybody, I was on the clock. 5 long years I've worked here at this Waupun Public Library, and I didn't write anything down because I'm at work. I said I don't want to take up the time. Introduced on my first day, Tammy sent me put a little picture on the page board of me at the Lego Club, and never in my years did I think I'd end up here. My heart's pounding. So we've been watching and supporting. Put it out on Facebook. The displays that I've made have leaned heavily. How many displays have I made, Brett? 15,000?
You always send an email, yes.
So many.
And the emails show up any day, any time of the day or night. And
that's right.
He's saying, hey, look what we did.
So much. Some of those I loved making pride displays, only because they were so contentious. Contentious for why? In today's political climate, it's just kind of the way things are. Polarized that way via the figures that are in power and the socioeconomic changes that within. I made these displays because it was fun to push the boundary. We had to ask about them all the time, make sure that like, hey, as a public institution, are we allowed to push this far? I didn't think it would ever be an issue, but on an institutional level, that makes sense that it would be. Doing those, I've learned through the little microaggressions that we've had, flipping things over, trying to hide them behind bookshelves, that type of thing, that this means a lot to a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And you never really think about the impact that it makes when you're on, the public-facing side, but as the person who's making them, it's a weird line to toe. I think that depriving people that engage with our displays, the content that they require and would seek, is unfair to them and unfair to anyone who would be impacted by the changes there within. If the explicitity of the content is the issue, that's kind of, comes with the territory. You're not going to get a big old passage of a book that has a little bit too many allusions to, real world explicit material that's blanked out. That's not, the way things go. You get, the explicit in whatever way it comes. I was never part of I never did the material selection. I just put construction paper to table to tape to, glue stick. But in that pursuit, in these 5 years, it's been great to put a foot out there to say like, hey, you've got people on the inside, and it's not that we don't see everybody, we do. I had a little illusion. I had some pride colors on a display with a bunch of shirtless men because they're romance novels because they're all werewolves or whatever. It's just the type of book that you get. And in that pursuit, you learn, especially when people come up to you and say, hey, we like that display. Or like, hey, we saw that someone took that display down. Can we put the books back up? Yes. That's fine.
Thank you. I must say, give Winston a hand. Tonight is his last night. He's on to a full-time job. What, next week? Good luck.
Hi, I'm Sandy Oestreich. I actually am an ordained minister. There's so many things to be said tonight. And I also validate all of you and the work of the library and all of our articulate speakers. I can tell there's people here with a very strong heart and concern for everybody. I appreciate that. I would probably say I would definitely say theologically, I would agree with Pastor Gappa. I did not come because I'm agreeing with asking anything to be banned. Forgive me, but I don't really believe that. My main concern is availability of material that parents would find objectionable for younger children. That's my main concern of things in the library. Whether it's whatever position of sexuality that might be. I think that's a case for parents to decide what they want their kids to understand about any form of sexuality. So I'm not here to say I don't think there should be a book about this, that, or the other in the library. Of course not. Anybody who can read chooses what they want to read. And we all have a right to our beliefs, okay? But there have been people I know, friends of mine, who their children, their young children under 10, have found books in the children's section that when they took it to their parent to look at, they really were dismayed that that was there. And so my request is not to say ban something, but my request is to say please reevaluate what you have at age level about anything. And it saddens me to think that we have to actually say, you know, I'm gay, I'm straight. Sexuality shouldn't have to do with anything, you know, in a public place. But anyway, that's another issue. There have been a couple of things that were said that I felt were somewhat illogical and emotional. One thing I have to comment about the gentleman who talked about the Constitution, it does not say that expression in the Constitution. There was a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to a friend discussing government and religion, and the purpose of separation of church and state was that the state would not try to influence the church. It wasn't the other way around. But anyway, that's just a historical fact. The whole issue of whether or not reading something influences you, and the sadness of people, of anybody of any age, of any description, taking their own life is awful. Awful, that's too light a word. It's terrible, it's tragic. But that shouldn't have anything to do with whether you're talking about what kind. There are other values involved in the books that we're talking about that are here. And I think we went into that emotional level quite a bit. But anyway, all I wanted to say was please reevaluate what you have in age-related material related to anything sexual. That's my concern. And I don't hate anybody. You know, I'm not even going to say that what I am sexually, because to me it doesn't matter who you are. I love people, and I don't judge them on the basis of anything, but I do hold the Bible to be the basis of judgment of my life and other people's for themselves what's right and wrong. And there is a right and wrong. Then it doesn't have to do with Leviticus or even Jesus' statements. The rest of the Bible, Paul talks very clearly about a lot of sexual issues. So anyway, thank you very much.
So I just wrote a letter. I do work at the library, but I also am a public educator. I teach high school English, so this is the subject that's really important to me. So I just want to say, the Waupun Public Library is a place for everyone. Our doors are open to people from all walks of life. The Waupun Public Library and its staff do not discriminate against anyone based on race or ethnicity, religious background, political beliefs, or social and economic classes. We also most definitely do not discriminate against members or allies of the LGBTQ+ community. We, as a public institution and staff, go one step further than not discriminating against anyone. We embrace diversity and celebrate it. We welcome all sorts of people into our building and ensure that they feel welcomed and safe. We display materials throughout the year that highlight the diversity of our community and our patrons. The displays we have constructed over the years have featured a variety of texts, books by Black authors, books containing strong Christian values and beliefs, books featuring conflicting political viewpoints, books on historical events, books by local authors, and books that highlight and promote love of all types. It seems that one display out of hundreds has struck a chord with a small group of people within the community. The aforementioned group has recently appeared in front of the library board seeking restrictions to be placed on the types of materials the library can display and promote within the library. They were offended by a display entitled Love is Love. This display featured books that contained relationships of all types, both same-sex and heterosexual couples. This was not a pride display, but rather a display highlighting romance. Since Waupun is a diverse community, it was only fitting to have a diverse selection of books featured. However, a man who doesn't even frequent the library has taken it upon himself to try and limit what we carry and display in the library. He says he does this because he is bound by God in the scripture to protect and defend Waupun. He claims our youth are too vulnerable and impressionable without his guidance. They risk turning to a life of sin if they are exposed to certain materials in the library. This is simply untrue and rather offensive. As detailed before, the library is a safe place for people to go to do their own research and form their own opinions. We carry a variety of materials that offer a variety of viewpoints. Sometimes these viewpoints are opposed to one another as to allow people to see both sides of a topic and decide for themselves where they fall. As stated earlier, the Waupun Public Library does not force any beliefs onto the public. However, this man and his followers are seeking to do just that. They want to force their religious beliefs into the library and force people to only get materials that they deem appropriate and that align with their personal religious beliefs. We welcome people of all religions into our building. We even carry a large array of religious texts and materials for people to check out. We do not, however, allow for people to come in and force their beliefs on others. We offer choice here at the library, but this group of individuals wants to take those choices away and force people to follow the standards they deem appropriate based on their personal religious beliefs. As an employee of the library and as a public educator, I come across materials and beliefs every day that are directly contradictory to my own personal values and beliefs. I choose to simply not read them, check out, or listen to materials that contradict my own belief system.
Okay,
but I do not stop.
Excuse me, Jess, your 3 minutes are up.
All right. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like?
I'm reading a letter on behalf of Laura.
State your name and
Oh,
address, please.
my name is Chris VanBuren. I live at 109 Fox Lake Road. I am reading a letter on behalf of Laura Reynolds, 716 Maple View Drive of Waupun. She's homebound, but she felt strongly about this subject. As a former municipal judge, city council member, commission member, and restorative justice practitioner, I am horrified by attempts to dictate what people may and may not read in our public library. As a teacher of history, I know what banning books leads to, from the burning of Tinsdale Bibles in the 16th century to Nazi book burnings of the 1930s. These were, as in the requested action regarding LGBT plus theme materials, acts arising from prejudice and closed-mindedness, not concern for public welfare. Setting out to limit the rights of those with whom we disagree is no way to respect the Constitution's absolute guarantee of the freedoms of religion, speech, press, and assembly found in the Bill of Rights. A public library's collection reflects a community's commitment to these rights. Only by reading a range of opinion do we develop critical minds and arm ourselves with the facts needed to come to rational conclusions. Practice your faith, but don't dictate to others. Set an example, engage in debate. That is the honorable and American way.
Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Kristin Lueck, and I just have to say, is it Gappa? Gappa?
Yeah.
Gappa. Okay. When I read that, I really did get upset. I don't think anything should be censored. I love our LGBTQ community, and I love Waupun, and I love everybody here that is against the censorship, because I feel like it's hateful. And to me, with religion, there's no hate in religion. And I also think you should probably get out of Alto more. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, the public meeting is closed then.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, it's still a public meeting. You can't talk. Yeah, you can't talk.
You don't have to leave if you don't want to, but the comment portion is over. So it's up to you what you'd like to do.
No old business, we'll go on to new business. The first is the collection development policy and related documents.
Yeah, and we reviewed this last year, I think it was last spring. And yeah, so everyone could see it online. It was posted on our packet, and it's the whole thing in the how we follow the American Library Association in the selection of the materials. We The Waupun Public Library endorses the Library Bill of Rights, the Freedom to Read Statement, and the Freedom to View Statement as adopted by the American Library Association. The next page, following that highlight, the library will challenge censorship of any materials in order to provide complete and accurate information on all sides of an issue and to foster a climate of intellectual freedom for area residents. That then leads into the Library Bill of Rights that every public library follows. The second section is materials should not be prescribed or removed because of partisan or doctrinal disapproval. And the next section, libraries should challenge censorship in the fulfillment of their responsibility to provide information and enlightenment. Now the Freedom to Read Statement. I mean, every time I see the ALA Freedom to Read Statement, I do kind of smile on the inside because it's not a statement, it's 4 pages long. So, I mean, I guess my English class, a statement was like a sentence. So, anyway, but in the Freedom to Read Statement on the second page, the people should have the freedom to read and consider a broader range of ideas than those that may be held by any single librarian or publisher or government or church. It is wrong that what one can read should be confined to what another thinks proper. The next page, no group has the right to take the law into its own hands and to impose its own concept of politics or morality upon other members of a democratic society. The last page, we believe rather that what people read is deeply important, that ideas can be dangerous, but that the suppression of ideas is fatal to a democratic society. So that finishes up the Freedom to Read Statement. The Freedom to View Statement, I think Heather, when she was talking, covered that. To contest vigorously by all lawful means every encroachment upon the public's freedom to view, which is more like, you're looking at movies, anything visual. So those are the ALA policies that all public libraries follow. So then in our material review policy, we also restate the Waupun Public Library supports and endorses the Library Bill of Rights, freedom to read, and the freedom to view. And then that next page, it's if there's a single book that somebody would like to request for review or challenge, that they have to check out an individual book, read the whole thing, they have to fill out the form, bring it back to me. There's a whole list of what the steps are. I reply within, I think it's 30 days. If they don't like my reply, then they can contact the library board. The board puts a committee together, they look at it, they bring that recommendation to the board, and the board, their decision is final. So that's how that works.
Brett, how often has that happened in the past?
There was one, I think, my second year here.
Yeah, there was a lady that, there were the 2 books.
It was one of the guys of the Rat Pack, the guy from Great Britain. So there's, like Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra. Mm-hmm. What was the guy's name? He was in The Longest Day with John Wayne, that World War II movie. He wore a white sweater and it was a turtleneck. That time, I remember the guy. He was the English guy, but they were autobiographical, and the person did not like, what they described, but it was an autobiography.
So you've been here how many years? So once in how many years?
27 years so far.
Okay. Love it. Okay.
God, I feel old. Thanks, Carrie.
Sorry.
Okay. And then the next, let's see, there was a question about displays, and so then there are pages from the American Library Association site about libraries often provide exhibit spaces and bulletin boards. These spaces should conform to the Library Bill of Rights. And again, the materials should not be excluded because of the origin, background, or views of those contributing to their creation. Materials should not be proscribed or removed because of partisan or doctrinal disapproval. So that's probably one thing that we'll look at in the future is a display policy, a formal one. Because following this, that just means everything here in the library, when the staff puts up a display, they can use. So that's how everything, how we follow this all follows along. So, and it's a public library, just like the public school district answers to the Department of Public Instruction. And just like we answer to the Department of Public Instruction, because coming up is the DPI's annual report. So we have to get through that too. Did you get your report done?
I did.
Oh, so did I. See. Okay, so anyway, so that's how it goes. So really,
I guess
you guys can talk about it in the future, or still my stand is we are in good shape. Our policies line up. We line up with every single public library I know of.
Question for you, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
At what age can you check a book out by yourself?
You can get a card at 5.
5?
But, you know, you have to have parental permission to get a card. We're not seeing a lot of young kids coming in here by themselves, especially not 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
They're coming with parents. So at 5, they would have access. That would not be, we wouldn't block them. But we're not, like I said, we're not seeing very young people coming up and checking books out by themselves.
So if they check something out other than a Scooby-Doo book or something like that, or get the book out of another section, do they get,
No.
they can't do that, correct?
They can do that.
They can do that.
But, yes, they can do that.
So they don't need a parent to...
No, the parent signs them up for the card, knowing that they have full access to all the books in the library. So if the parent would not want them to have full access to all the books in the library, they could just not get their child a card, because we're not going to just check out books to someone that comes up and says, I want to check these out on my parent's account without the card. If they have the card, physical card, we're assuming that the parent gave it to them, because we're going to assume that. But we're not going to just say, oh, we'll check it out to your parent's account. So they have to have a card. But the parent will know that they have access to everything in the library.
Yeah, and I don't know how many times over the years, even at my previous library, which was a lifetime ago, really, if you want them to check things out, be a parent and be with your child and look what they want to check out. That's up to you. Be a parent. So that's, yeah. But then some parents, they treat this like a daycare center of babysitting service and give them a card and it's almost like let her rip.
The other thing to note is that we're not going to be following people around the library. They could pull books off the shelf at any time, read them here while they're sitting. They don't have to actually check them out. So we can't control that either. So,
yeah.
So the question to the board, I guess, or request to the board was, did we want to review, possibly change the development policy? And in reading through everything that Brett sent, and thank you for being so very, very thorough.
Yes.
I mean, I really have to agree that I think our development policy is good. It's open as it should be. If there is any shortcoming, it is probably the display, having a written display policy, because I think we all kind of know it's been a rule, but we don't have it written down. But for myself, I am not open to the idea of modifying the policy to look at people's political or religious views to vet materials for the library.
So would you like Pam and I to just work on a display policy? We can look at what the other public libraries are doing. I know there's samples online on the DPI website, and we can put something together and you can look at it and we can make adjustments.
To clarify, we do have, like, when someone wants to display their materials here in the display pieces, we do have a policy for that. We just don't have a staff material. Like, we'll put books on display. We don't have a staff policy for that.
Right. And I think that we should.
Okay.
That'd be a good idea.
Did you have another question, Mike? You were saying something, or?
No, I think I got it.
It's a good question, and thanks for explaining all that.
Anybody have anything else about the collection development policy? If not, we'll move on to public input statement.